Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes on this Boxing Day. And tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, we're dealing with a slow-moving storm system that's bringing rain to the eastern U.S. and the blizzard that's on the other side of the low in the plains will be winding down overnight and on Wednesday. So that's the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on this Boxing Day tonight at 7:35 p.m. And I guess maybe this falls under the category of a Boxing Day storm in the plains, certainly, because we do still have blizzard warnings up to 2 feet of snow in some places. Uh, got blizzard warnings from northeastern Colorado and northwest Kansas all the way up into South Dakota, surrounded by ice storm warnings that extend northeastward from South Dakota into the western counties of Minnesota. Winter weather advisories around that. We've got a few winter storm warnings in the mix, too. Uh, the scale of this storm, though, is very limited in that it's playing out all in this area in the plains. So it's not as if we're seeing a storm that's going to take heavy snows to the Great Lakes and then on up into New England. This is just going to play itself out. In the meantime, with the warm pattern in the east, we had some dense fog that developed overnight this morning. Some places we'll probably have that again tonight and tomorrow. Not a whole lot going on in the west, other than some areas where in the gold we've got high wind warnings up in parts of Oregon, wind advisories along the coast of northern California, and storm warnings that are up for the coastal waters. Flood watches for western North Carolina and northwestern South Carolina as this storm system in the east starts to move its way northward, but taking its sweet time. And as we check out on the satellite, the circulation in the upper atmosphere here is very impressive, and it's really dominating the weather east of the Rockies. You've got this subtropical jet that is coming out of the Pacific across Mexico, and that's going to find its way up the eastern seaboard. Now, before we panic, yes, we'll probably wind up with 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter of rain out of this. I don't think it's going to be something that winds up being double and triple those amounts, at least from what I'm seeing right now. It's not like we have a developing major storm along the East Coast to facilitate this. So, yeah, it's tropical moisture that's coming up, but it should be somewhat limited. And of course, you see the action back in the rotation across the plains with this blizzard underway. As for the radar, as we check it out at midday, we've got some rain that has moved into parts of Pennsylvania, central and southwest Pennsylvania, at least aloft, in a few places definitely reaching the ground. And then we've got some moderate to heavy rain, southern West Virginia down into western North and South Carolina. That is creeping northward. Now, what's most of this is going to wind up initially going to the west of us. But I think what's going to happen is we'll start to see a blossoming out of rain over the coastal mid-Atlantic and then into the Northeast, and that's going to come up later tomorrow night into Thursday. WPC is going for anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to as much as an inch and a half in the inland areas, and the reason why we're seeing the higher amounts across Pennsylvania and down through the mountains of western Virginia into western North Carolina is because of the fact that this first lead area of rain is playing itself out there, and it's not going to be playing out along the coastal plain. Also, at least for areas in Virginia and western North Carolina, whatever is left of the drought is pretty much going to be wiped away, I think, with this rainfall. In the west, we've got heavy rains for Northern California with an offshore storm in the Pacific of several to many inches in some places north of San Francisco into southwestern Oregon. Snow to the next 72 hours, of course, continues in the plains. We've got a continued high probability for at least 2 inches, and many of these areas already have a foot on the ground, so it's all on top of what already has fallen. Otherwise, when we look at this in the eastern part of the United States over the next 3 days, except for northernmost Maine, where there's a high probability of at least a couple of inches, every place else is in no snow mode. So just checking out the latest GFS run, see the low center. It's not a particularly strong low. It's a thousand. 1,006 millibars just south and west of Kansas City. It's more the upper features that are more impressive here. And then, of course, as that storm rotates, it's lifting up this arm of rain along the East Coast tonight into Wednesday morning. It will spread in from south to north during the day on Wednesday and then move up into New England. You can see it's all rain, even all the way up into northern New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. The surface low will reform along the South Carolina coast and then run northeastward offshore. We'll probably see the steady rain end Thursday morning, and then we're going to have to deal with this upper low. And you see there's some snow there in eastern Missouri and western Illinois that drops down into Tennessee. This is cold air aloft. The surface air is not really all that cold. So while we will see temperatures which will be in the 50s this afternoon, 50s tomorrow, and probably 50s again on Thursday, we'll start to see them cool down a bit Friday and into the weekend. But I'm not anticipating anything especially cold. And right now, it seems that while we may have some lingering precip on Friday as that upper low goes by, and there might even be another little surface low that develops with that, we could see some rain lingering into early Saturday morning. I think weather conditions will gradually improve over the weekend, and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day over much of the U.S. looks fairly quiet, with just a couple of exceptions. Rain blossoming out in along the Gulf Coast, and some rain and snow out in the west. We still don't see any major shots of cold air coming down into the Northeast anytime in the next week or so. We still seem to be dealing with what I often refer to as dirty cold air. It's seasonal. It's not Arctic air. It's bare. You want to call it polar air, I guess you can, but it's just pretty much seasonal air, and not the kind of air mass that you want to have if you're thinking of breaking the snow drought that exists in much of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. So, just once again, a reminder tonight, the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast on the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, as we talk about this slow-moving storm system and take a look at what the long range has to say. That's at 7:35 p.m. I hope your Christmas, by the way, was absolutely wonderful, and I hope everything works out as we start to head toward New Year's.